something interesting got a lot of attention in China is about this person, this woman, Vera Hubhaus, who is the member of the parliament. She recently was denied to entry Hong Kong when she was visiting her son and her son's family. Apparently, her son got a son, so it's her grandson, I guess. And China just denied her entry. Are there any reactions in Britain about this?
Oh yeah, of course there are. There's furious anger and all of that. This is absolutely outrageous. You cannot possibly do that. Um, the idea that this is Chinese territory and that the Chinese have sovereign right about who enters their own country, which Britain recognises that Hong Kong is Chinese sovereign territory. Just to remind people
Uh-huh.
that this isn't somehow reasonable or acceptable, and China has violated the agreements that were made between Britain and China about Hong Kong. Nobody ever explains how, by the way. But
Uh-huh.
anyway, supposedly it has. And as I said, there's rage and there's tantrums and there's anger and all that kind of thing. But there it is. I mean, who cares? I'm sorry to say that. I mean, why should anybody in Beijing worry about what Britain thinks about these things? This is
Yeah.
where I think, again, the British find it very, very difficult to understand that given current British foreign policy, their opinions carry no weight in
Mhm.
more and more places.
Actually, I think lots of people, netizens, and me included, are thinking the Chinese government is too nice to her. You see, the reason they deny her entry is because she's part of this IPAC Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, which is they do nothing but to smear China, lie about China. The two funders are two Australian that got sanctioned by China, so I guess they got angry, so they started building something like that. And then why would this woman, Vera Hubhaus, join that? I don't know. But China sanctioned IPAC, but they haven't sanctioned her. If they sanctioned her, her son wouldn't be able to work in China. And so this time they
Well, there you
just
go.
denied her entry, but her son obviously is working in Hong Kong. So lots of netizens are saying, well, they shouldn't allow any of her families to work to make money in China. That's actually the sentiment in the Chinese media. Just
I'm not surprised. I'm absolutely not surprised. I mean, by the way, I mean, if we, what we have an expression in Britain: what sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. In other words, I mean, if you behave in a certain way, then don't be surprised if others behave in the same way to you. In the media here in Britain, you constantly find people hunting around to find Russians who work here and who are, the third cousin 5 times removed to some official in the Russian government. And isn't this outrageous? And let's throw this person out. So, I'm not surprised that people in China feel this way. The real surprise is that the British are surprised about it. But this is very much the attitude that British people have. They could say anything they want about China. They can be as rude as they like, not about just about China, any country in the world that they want to be, rude about. It's absolutely fine. But if the other side pushes back, that's outrageous. I mean, we've discussed this with the
Mhm.
so-called wolf warrior
Yeah.
business. I mean, just a few diplomats using a pale imitation of the language about some people and countries in the West and Western policies that the West every day uses about China. But that's outrageous.
And regarding this Inter-Parliamentary Alliance and China, I find this interesting. So these group of people, it's called Inter-Parliamentary, so it's the different parliament members that they get together. All they did is to badmouth China, smear China. Don't they don't have alliance about, for example, fighting poverty, fighting human trafficking, or homelessness. They don't build alliance for those causes. The only thing they could think of to get together is to get together like bad mouth smear China. Isn't that ridiculous?
Well, it tells you what the real agenda of these organizations actually is. For me, the really bitter one is Amnesty International, which I remember
That's good.
once upon a time. Whatever you may have thought of it in the 60s and 70s, I mean, it really was concerned about prisoners.
Hmm.
You might argue that some of the prisoners that they got involved in were not quite particularly nice people, but they also, by the way, in those days, conducted their work very much in private. It's now become just basically an instrument of Western foreign policy. That's all it is.
Yeah. So what's moving on forward? Xi Jinping recently visited the ASEAN countries, right? And so clearly want to improve and deeper the cooperations, and certainly some of the products will go through these countries, go to the United States, stuff like that. But it doesn't seem like Xi Jinping will pick up the phone anytime soon. What will happen then? There will be just to keep on this kind of a stalemate, just keep on going. What's going to happen?
Well, about a week ago, I was basically saying that at some point the United States will have to bend, that they will need to come to some kind of understanding with China. I was saying that if Trump wants to pursue his protectionist economic policy, then what he should do is he should bring down tariffs to 10% on every country, maybe have higher tariffs to protect individual industries. Forget all about this absurd reciprocal tariff idea, which, by the way, was considered absolute heresy by the protectionists of the United States in the 19th century. They were deeply opposed to reciprocal tariffs, and I can find you huge numbers of extracts and articles and speeches from that time in which they said reciprocal tariffs are a terrible idea and they will involve you in political conflicts when your objective is to protect American industry. So I was saying all of that a week ago. To be honest, given the way this has evolved into a geopolitical issue, United States versus China, I'm starting to doubt that kind of rationality, that kind of sanity, which is, sane policy. It might be the wrong policy, but it's a policy which has a kind of economic coherence about it. I'm starting to doubt that we will get there. So I think that probably we are now at that point of this bifurcation, where the United States goes its way, downwards. China goes its way, upwards. We start to see new economic relations develop around the world. As you rightly said, Xi Jinping was in Vietnam, where he was very well received. He went to Malaysia, where he was very well received. Malaysia, I believe now, either wants to join BRICS or is already a member of BRICS. Vietnam, I'm sure, will follow. They're all going to meet again, by the way. Certainly the leader of Vietnam and Xi Jinping are going to be in Moscow in a few weeks' time. So all kinds of things are going to happen, and the world is just going to go its way, and the United States and any country that still wants to stick with the United States is going to go the other. As a European, I am very depressed about this, because it seems to me that my region, my part of the world, is retreating into isolation. There it is. I've been thinking a great deal about, just to say this, there was, in the early 1970s, there was a big, massive British television series about science, called The Ascent of Man. Of course, those are the days before we worried about gender so much. The Ascent of Man, and the person who was the host of it, who did all the kind of lectures, was a man called Bronowski, who was a very, very big person in science at that time. And he finished his last program. This is in the early 70s. And I remembered it from then, and I've just checked it out today. And he said that in the West, we are losing our nerve. We are not going out. We're not looking outward anymore. And he said that in terms of the progress of humanity, that is not a tragedy at all. If humanity continues to progress, and the progress is in Asia, Really doesn't matter. But as a European, it will be a sad day for me if, say, Shakespeare becomes a provincial writer. if and I get to say it, I feel something of the same myself. I mean, I looking back, Bronowski clearly was a very clever man, and he was absolutely prescient in what he said back in the 70s. This is the early 70s. And I feel this. I feel that not only is his prophecy coming true, but for my own region, for my own culture, I feel very sad about this. It seems to me that we're making the same mistakes that China made in the 1790s. We've talked about this before, when Qianlong said, we don't need to trade with these Western countries. We are, we know all about the French Revolution and all the things that are happening there, and we're going to pursue self-sufficiency, which we can, and we are technologically ahead, and we are more advanced, and we can afford to do that. And we know where that led. And it seems to me that we are doing exactly the same to ourselves, and I'm very depressed about it. I mean, I feel that we don't understand what we are doing to ourselves, and we are closing our mind. You can see that every day in the West, in Europe. We have hysteria about Russia. We have hysteria about China. We are retreating into ourselves, and our culture, which is already in crisis, is going to stagnate, and our scientific and technological lead, which we once had, which is already gone, we're going to start to fall behind, and the future of humanity will be led in other places. That's what I feel.
Yeah. Well, we will see. I mean, it doesn't have to go that way, right? But yes, I see, all the signs.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah. Okay. Let's talk
I
next
can see
week.
it. Donald Trump as Qianlong. Just what a thought. I mean, Qianlong, it must be said, was a rather more cultured man than Donald Trump is. But anyway, you could see the same arrogance, the same refusal to address the realities, or to confront the realities and complexities of the world. And as I said, we're heading in exactly the same direction. With less excuse, by the way, because certainly the McCartney mission behaved with extraordinary boorishness when it was in China. It must be said too. But anyway, there it is.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk next week. And seems like last week to today, Trump like changing his mind every day. So we will see if he's going to change his mind every day.
I know. But if he retreats from this, given the rhetoric and the hysteria, and it's not just hysteria. I mean, there are people who really believe all of this.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel that this is a sign of things to come. Anyway, there it is. I mean, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Okay. I'm hoping you're wrong too. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
On this one. Okay.
And we'll catch up next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk.
We'll catch up next week. Have a great week.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.